The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, loaded kind that followed Marcus into the house like a shadow. He started coming home later, his keys hitting the entry table long after I had washed the dishes and turned off the TV. He did not kiss my forehead anymore or ask about my day. He walked straight to the bedroom, muttered something about work, and shut the door. His suit smelled different too, not of the cheap detergent we used to buy in bulk, but of something sharp and expensive, a cologne I had never seen in our bathroom. He began carrying himself like he was taller, like the air in the room did not quite reach him. At night, I would feel the glow of his phone on the other side of the bed, his back turned to me, his shoulders slightly hunched, his voice a whisper as he said things like, "I told you it is almost done," and "I will handle it." When I moved, the whisper stopped. I tried to tell myself it was stress. For years, I had watched him chase one business idea after another, some collapsing within months, others barely making enough to pay the rent. I had worked double shifts as a nurse, taken side gigs, cut every corner to keep us afloat. Not because I needed him to succeed, but because he needed to believe he could. But his patience with me began to fray. "Why are you asking so many questions, Lena?" he snapped one evening when I asked why he had missed Sunday dinner with my family. "I am not a child." He never spoke to me like that before. A part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to search his phone and tear through his briefcase. Instead, I bought a small notebook and started writing things down. Times, dates, his mood, his lies. I did not know what I was building, only that it felt like preparing for a storm I could not yet see. Some nights, while he whispered into his phone, I lay in the dark with my eyes open, my heart beating so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Something was coming. I could feel it. And I knew when it arrived, my life would not look the same. The morning he changed our lives, he woke up smiling. Not the tired, grateful smile I was used to, but a wide, bright grin that lit up his whole face. He stood at the foot of the bed in his best navy suit, the one we could barely afford last year. "Get dressed," he said. "I have news." We sat at the small kitchen table we bought from a thrift store when we first moved in. He did not touch the coffee I poured for him. He was buzzing, jittery, like a child on Christmas morning. "I told you it would happen," he said. "I closed the deal. The investment came through. 7 figures, Lena. 7. He dropped the number between us like a bomb. I stared at him, my fingers wrapped around my mug. For a moment, I was happy. I saw late bills finally paid, our leaking ceiling fixed, a car that did not rattle every time we turned left. "That is incredible," I said. "We did it." His eyes flicked up at me and the word caught in his jaw. "We?" he repeated with a quiet laugh. "I worked for this, Lena. I sacrificed everything." I swallowed the sting in my chest. That week, packages arrived at the door. Designer suits, shiny watches, Italian shoes. He traded our old sedan for a sleek black car that looked like it belonged to a man who did not have to ask the price of things. He canceled the anniversary trip I had been planning for months. "Paris can wait," he said. "I have bigger things to focus on." He started taking selfies with his new partners, posting their dinners, their cigars, their whiskey, tagging them with captions like, "Started from nothing, built this myself." I watched from the doorway as he posed in tailored shirts I had not ironed, wearing a confidence I did not recognize. In those posts, I was invisible. That night, as he poured a drink in our small living room, he said, "I'm finally going to live the life I deserve." I smiled meekly, but something in me quietly broke. The gap between us widened faster than I could track it. He stopped coming to family dinners altogether.
My mother would call and ask if everything was all right, her voice laced with a worry she tried to hide. I lied more than I ever had in my life. "He is just busy with work, Mama," I would say. "You know how it is." At an event for his company, I saw it clearly for the first time. The way he laughed too loudly at a joke from a woman at his firm. The way his hand lingered a little too long on the small of her back. She was tall, perfectly styled, with a bright red lipstick that stained her champagne glass. "This is Tiana," he said, barely glancing at me as he introduced us. "She has been helping with the investor presentation." "More than helping," she added with a smile, her eyes sliding over me, assessing. Throughout the night, he kept going back to her, bending his head close to whisper something that made her laugh. I stood near the bar, pretending to be interested in the art on the walls, my chest tight and hot. On the drive home, he criticized my dress. "You could have tried a bit harder," he said. "First impressions matter. People look at me and think about who is beside me." I stared out the window so he would not see the tears in my eyes. Later that week, I heard him in the hallway. "I feel trapped sometimes," he said on the phone, "like I outgrew the life I built, like I am being held back." There was a pause, then a low, feminine laugh. That night, my sister Camille came over and watched him brush past us without even saying hello. She waited until he left, then turned to me. "You know this is not just work," she said. My throat tightened. "I know." She put her hand over mine. "You have to protect yourself, Lena." After she left, I opened the drawer where I kept my notebook and kept writing. Times, names, details, everything that hurt, everything that might one day matter.
It happened on a Thursday. Marcus came home late, his tie loose, his cheeks flushed from alcohol and victory. There was a sharpness to his movements, like he had been wound too tight with praise and could not unwind. He walked into the living room, took in the sight of me folding laundry, and smirked. "We need to talk," he said. Those words had never sounded so dangerous. He took a seat on the arm of the chair, not bothering to remove his coat. "I bought a penthouse," he announced. "Downtown, floor-to-ceiling windows, views of the whole city. It is what I deserve." I stared at him, my fingers tightening on the fabric in my hands. "A penthouse?" I repeated. "For us?" He hesitated. Barely, but I saw it. "For me," he said. "At least for now." The air left my lungs. What is that supposed to mean? "It means," he said slowly, as if explaining something obvious to a child, "that I am building an image. Investors expect a certain lifestyle, high-profile events, elegant company, a certain perception. You have to understand, this house, this version of me, it does not match where I am going." My heart was beating so hard my ears rang. "So I do not match where you are going?" He sighed and looked away. "Do not twist my words. You used to understand sacrifice, now you just cling." I stood up, the folded shirt dropping to the floor. "I worked 2 jobs so you could chase these dreams. I skipped family vacations. I skipped sleep. I believed in you when no one else did. How am I suddenly the anchor holding you back?" He rolled his eyes. "You are being dramatic. This is what success looks like, Liana. New circles, new standards." "And new women?" I shot back. "Like Tiana?" For a moment, his jaw clenched. Then he shrugged. "You are becoming paranoid." He walked away, his phone already in his hand, his shoulders relaxed as if he had finished a simple task. I stood alone in the living room, shaking, understanding for the first time that the man I married had become someone who could discard me as easily as yesterday's plan. He woke me early 2 days later. The curtains were still drawn, the room dim and gray. I blinked against the light of the lamp he had turned on, squinting to see his expression. His face looked carved from stone. "Get up," he said. "We need to talk." I sat up slowly, my heartbeat already racing. He placed a neat stack of papers on my lap. The pages were clipped together, printed in dense text. "I had this drafted," he said. "It is a separation agreement. It is better if we handle this like adults." I felt myself go cold. "Separation?" I repeated. "I have responsibilities now," he said. "I cannot afford drama. We will make this clean and quiet. You move out, we keep things respectful, and I will give you some money to get on your feet." "Some money?" I repeated. "This is our home, Marcus. Our life." He shook his head. "I built this life. You do not own my success. You did not close the deals. You did not take the risks. You stayed home." The words hit like a slap. I stayed home after working double shifts. I paid the rent when your businesses failed. I paid for your seminars, your flights, your meetings. You begged me to believe in you, and I did. His eyes hardened. "Do not act like you are owed half of everything I created. You are not entitled to that. You can sign this and walk away with dignity, or you can fight me and end up with nothing. Your choice." I looked down at the pages. Legal terms swam before my eyes. This was not a conversation. It was an eviction. My hand shook as I set the papers aside. "I am not signing this," I said quietly. He laughed, a short, cruel sound. "Do not be stupid, Lena." He grabbed the papers and stormed out, the bedroom door slamming behind him. My chest hurt so much it was hard to breathe. But underneath the pain, something else began to stir. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Something sharper. Memory. Of a small kitchen table years ago, a desperate man, a signed promise, and a pen gliding across cheap paper. 3 days later, he came back with company. 2 men in suits stood in our living room, their briefcases resting on the coffee table. Marcus stood behind them like a king who had brought his soldiers to enforce the law. I sat on the opposite couch, my back straight, my hands folded in my lap. "Mrs. James," one of the lawyers began, "we are here to discuss the separation agreement and ensure you understand your options." "I understand my options," I said, "and I am not signing." Marcus stepped forward, his voice tight. "Stop being difficult, Lena. You cannot win this. Everything is in my name. The company, the accounts, the penthouse. You drag this out, and you walk away with nothing but that old car." He leaned over the table, his eyes burning into mine. "I am trying to be kind here. Take what I am offering." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Mr. James, perhaps we should keep the tone civil." Marcus straightened, his jaw ticking. He looked at me with a disgust I had never seen in his eyes before. "That is what this is really about, right? You want to live off what I earned? You want to cling to me now that I finally made it? You did not help build any of this." The insult was almost laughable. He stepped closer, his voice rising. "I am done carrying you. Do you hear me? I am done pretending this is a partnership. Now that I'm rich, get out of my sight." The words hung in the air, sharper than any slap, cutting deeper than any insult he had ever thrown. The lawyers went quiet. The room seemed to hold its breath. My heart pounded, but my face stayed calm. I had waited for this moment. I had needed him to say who he truly was. I stood up slowly. "Are you finished?" I asked. He smirked. Not yet. You have a week to leave this house. Sign the agreement, and I will be generous. Refuse, and you will regret it. The old version of me would have cried, begged, reached for him. This version did not. Instead, I walked to the bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept my notebook and something else, an sealed envelope, edges worn from being moved but never opened. I returned to the living room, the envelope in my hand, and placed it on the table between us. Marcus, I said quietly, before you keep making threats, I think you should read this. He stared at the envelope like it offended him. What is that? Your past, I said, and my insurance. The lawyers exchanged a look. One of them reached for it. May I? I nodded. He opened it carefully and slid out a stapled document, a few pages thick. The paper was yellowed slightly at the edges. That is nothing, Marcus said. Some old bill, probably. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and began to read. His expression changed almost immediately. His brows lifted, his eyes flicked up to Marcus, then back down to the page. What is it? Marcus demanded. I watched him, memories unfolding in my mind like a film. It was 6 years ago. Marcus had just watched another business crumble. He sat at our old table, his head in his hands, saying he was a failure, that he had ruined everything. Give me one more chance, he had said. If you help me fund this new venture, I will put it in writing. Anything I build after that, you own half. I swear. I remember the desperation in his eyes, the way his hands shook as he held the pen. I had found a template for a partnership agreement online, modified it, printed it. I insisted we sign it in front of his best friend Damien, who owed me a favor and agreed to witness it. At the time, I thought it was symbolic, a way to make him feel like we were in this together. Now, it was more than symbolic. It was binding. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. James, he said carefully, this appears to be a legal partnership agreement, signed and notarized, naming your wife as an equal partner in all current and future business ventures initiated with the funds she provided on the date listed here. Marcus laughed. That is ridiculous. I never signed anything like that. The lawyer turned the last page around and slid it across the table. There it was, his name, his signature, bold and undeniable. Damien's signature beneath it, a notary stamp at the bottom. Marcus's face drained of color. He picked up the document with shaking hands, staring at it as if it had appeared out of thin air. This is not possible. I do not remember this. You do not remember a lot of things I did for you. That does not make them less real. He looked up at me, panic flickering behind the anger. You tricked me. I shook my head. You begged me. You said you wanted me there if you ever made it. You said you wanted to make it official. So we did. The room went very still. For the first time in months, I felt the balance shift. For the next few minutes, there was only the sound of pages turning and the faint tick of the clock on the wall. One lawyer took out his tablet and began searching for statutes, double-checking language. The other asked me a series of questions. Did I provide the initial capital? Did I keep records? Did I have proof? Yes, I said to all of it. Bank statements, transfers from my account to his, email threads where he thanked me and called me my first investor, my notebook filled with dates and amounts. There is no way she gets half of everything, Marcus snapped. She did not build my company. She is just my wife. Your partner, I corrected, on paper, and in reality. The lawyer cleared his throat again. Given this agreement and the documentation Mrs. James is describing, it is highly likely a court would recognize her as an equal partner in your ventures, Mr. James. That includes the current company and any assets purchased through it. Marcus stared at him as if he had grown another head. You work for me, he said slowly. You are supposed to protect me. I am advising you. Ignoring this contract could put you at serious risk. Marcus turned back to me, his anger now mixed with fear. So what now? You want to destroy everything I built? I felt strangely calm. I do not want to destroy anything. I just refuse to be erased. His jaw clenched. Fine. What do you want? For years, I had wanted his love, his loyalty, his partnership. Now I wanted something simpler. Respect, freedom, justice. I want what I am entitled to. Nothing more, nothing less. He ran a hand over his face. The arrogance was slipping, replaced with something raw and shaky. We can talk about this, he said, his voice dropping. Privately. We do not need lawyers involved. We can work something out like we used to. I thought of the separation agreement he had shoved in my face. The way he told me to get out of his sight now that he was rich. No, I said. We are not doing this in the dark. Not this time. His lawyers sat in uneasy silence, their eyes moving between us. The man who had strutted around this house like a king suddenly looked small in his own living room. And for the first time, I did not feel small at all. In the days that followed, his world started to tilt. His lawyers sent proposals. They tried to reinterpret the contract, to argue that it was outdated, that it applied only to the first business, not the current one. My attorney, a woman recommended by my sister, read every line and smiled. It is solid, she said. He signed away more than he realized. You have leverage. Marcus called, texted, and even showed up unannounced at the house. The penthouse he bought watched over the city like a monument, but he kept coming back to the little home he once tried to force me out of. One evening, he stood in the doorway, looking less polished than I had seen him in months. No tie, collar open, eyes tired. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside, letting him in. He did not sit. He looked around the living room as if seeing it for the first time. The worn couch we shared, the coffee table he assembled, the photo of us from our wedding day still on the shelf. "I never meant for it to get this ugly," he said. "I was angry. I said things I did not mean." "You meant them at the time," I replied. "That is enough." He winced. "I worked so hard for this, Lena. I thought once I got here, I could finally breathe. I did not think I would have to fight you too." "I am not fighting you," I said. "I am defending myself." He stepped closer, his voice softening. "Do you still love me?" The question lodged in my throat. I thought of the man who used to fall asleep with his head in my lap after another failed meeting, whispering, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I thought of the man at the party laughing with another woman like I was invisible. "I loved the man I married," I said. "I do not know who you are now." He swallowed hard. "If people find out about this contract, it could ruin me. They will say I used my wife's money to build my empire. They will say I'm a fraud." "You did use my money," I said. "That is not an insult. It is the truth. And it does not make your work less valuable. It means you did not do it alone." He sat down then, his shoulders slumping. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I want you to accept the terms we both signed," I said. "I want my share, and I want out." His head snapped up. "Out? As in divorce?" "Yes, on my terms, not on a separation agreement you throw at me like a bone." He stared at me a long time, searching for the woman who used to bend so he wouldn't break. "You are really leaving," he said quietly. "Yes." He closed his eyes, the reality settling in. For once, he did not argue. The day I signed the divorce papers, the sky was clear and bright. We sat in a polished conference room overlooking the city. His attorney, my attorney, a stack of documents between us. The agreement reflected the reality he had tried so hard to ignore. I retained half of his shares in the company and a significant portion of the assets that had grown from that first investment I made in him. I kept the house. He kept the penthouse. He glanced at the numbers one last time and shook his head. "I never thought it would end like this," he said. "Neither did I replied. "But then I did not think you would throw me away at the moment you felt rich enough to live without me." He flinched, but did not argue. We signed in silence. When we were done, he stood and slipped his hands into his pockets, the way he always did when he tried to look unbothered. But his eyes gave him away. "For what it is worth," he said, "I am sorry. For what I said, for how I handled all of this. I believed that he regretted losing control. I did not know if he regretted who he had become. Learn from it," I said. "That is all you can do now." He nodded slowly. "You were there when no one else was," he said. "I will never be able to change that, or repay it." "You already did," I said. "You signed the contract." A small, humorless smile tugged at his mouth. "I guess I did." I walked out of the building without looking back. My attorney offered to call me a car, but I wanted to walk, to feel the ground under my feet. The city noise washed over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not because I had money, not because I had won, but because I had chosen myself. At home that evening, I made a simple dinner for one. I opened the windows and let the warm air in. I took down our wedding photo and placed it gently in a drawer. I thought of all the years I had spent shrinking so his dream could have room to grow. I thought of the moment he told me to get out of his sight now that he was rich. And I thought of the look on his face when he realized I had been his partner all along, not his burden. I did not know exactly what my future looked like, but I knew this much. I would never again let someone rewrite my worth. Not on paper, not in words, not in their eyes. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the city lights come on one by one, like small, steady promises of something new. I was no longer the woman waiting for him to come home. I was the woman who had finally come home to herself.